Whoa, whoa, boom, cool. Hello, everybody. It is our final, what's up, family over there? So it is our final presentation and our final workshop for today. And I'm happy to introduce Lucille Hu to the stage. And Lucille is going to be she is a partner at FBG Capital. And FBG Capital is essentially taking this ethos of blockchain as a global movement and really putting it into practice. So they're kind of an Asian-based firm that thinks about this global footprint and addressing a global audience. And they've made about 70 investments in blockchain companies, and a lot of them are essentially connected with FBG in order to expand into Asia, to build communities in Asia, and to work with this new global world. So with that, Lucille, come on stage. Thank you.
Thank you for that very nice intro, Reese. Really happy to be here today at ETHDenver. I think I've been to a lot of conferences on both the West Coast and the East Coast, so really happy to finally come to Colorado. So today I will be talking to you guys about the global blockchain community, the Asian blockchain communities in particular. A quick introduction of myself and FBG. Like Reese said, my name is Lucille. I'm based out of SF, and I'm with a cryptocurrency fund called FBG Capital. FBG is a global digital assets management firm. We started out in Beijing in 2014 with a cryptocurrency trading arm. And we moved into the ICO space in 2016. Today we manage more than 70 companies on the portfolio side, and our trading arm handles more than $1 billion USD in monthly transactions. So we've grown a lot in the last few years. A lot of the team is based out of Beijing, but we also have offices in Singapore, New York, San Francisco. I'm based out of SF, and we're setting up a presence in Tokyo, Seoul, and Berlin this year. So if we're in any of your cities, please come say hi. So blockchain really is a global phenomenon. A lot of the folks here today have traveled from all over the world. And last year in 2017, it's estimated that more than $4 billion US were put into the ICO market. $1 billion were put in December alone. And internally, there's a lot of, I think, differing estimates about what the geographical split is. But internally, we estimate maybe 30 to 40% from the US, 20 to 30% from Asia, 20 to 30% from Europe, and the remainder distributed across the rest of the world. For 2018, our conservative estimate for ICO funding is $30 billion. So this is a really big market, and it's a really global market. So teams looking to build protocols or your own applications, keep the global community in mind. So FBG is an Asia-focused fund, or an Asia-based fund. And part of the reason we've been able to grow so quickly the last few years is because Asia is a really key blockchain market. It's one of the few geographies, I think, where there's a huge population of tech-enabled people who are already very comfortable and very familiar with making digital payments. So it's a great place to experiment with protocols and having a live user base to kind of play and give you feedback on your products. some stats. The US has a population of about 330 million. China is about 1.4 billion. Japan, South Korea, other key Asian geographies also have pretty big populations, but both less than the US and China. Across all of these geographies, mobile and internet penetration is above 95%. So that's a lot of people who have access to the internet and who are, whose behavior is already aligned with what we in the blockchain community would like to see in terms of interaction and engagement. In the US, Japan, and South Korea, more than 80% of people are already very comfortable and very familiar with making digital payments. It's a little lower in China, close to between 50 to 60%. But if you apply those percentages to the underlying populations, there's a huge potential community based out of China. It's close to 1.4 billion. So please do not forget the other geographies outside of the US, outside of the West, as you're starting to build up your communities and your technologies. So I was thinking today would be a little bit more of a conversation. I'll take questions about the Asian blockchain community, maybe what FBG does, but I'd really like for this to be a conversation. Are there any questions now, or I can talk a little bit more? Yeah, with the black sweater.
My question is about the Chinese government's view about this technology. Since your firm is primarily based in Beijing, do you have a view, or can you share some insight about how the Chinese government looks at this space and what the implications are?
Right, so that's a question that's come up a lot, especially after last September with China's ICO ban. So in general, China is very pro-technology. Like if you look at some of the world's biggest publicly listed tech companies, Alibaba, JD, they're all based out of China. So fundamentally, the government is pro-technology. But there's a lot of other issues that that the government's trying to manage and regulate around. So like capital outflow is an issue. And because of that, the government's position on blockchain and tokens has been pretty cautious. And the reaction might have been a little bit more extreme, especially compared to how regulation has been progressing in the US and in the West. So I'd say the government is fundamentally pro-tech, but they're still figuring out how to regulate in a way that doesn't slow down blockchain and fintech development too much. So the future is bright in China, but the road is winding, and I think both the government and local blockchain communities are in the process of figuring out what the right next steps would be. Any other questions? So something that's also interesting to think about is that in Asia and in China in particular, where there are a lot of huge technology unicorns, publicly listed companies are starting to think about how they can bring blockchain solutions onto their own platforms, as well as thinking about issuing their own tokens. So our conservative estimate internally is that maybe up to 80% of publicly listed tech companies are starting to think about blockchain solutions. FBG has a good relationship with a lot of players in the blockchain ecosystem in Asia, as well as more traditional, traditional technology players. So, where our access in Asia is good, and we're also very happy to, introduce teams to blockchain teams as well as players in the more traditional space, and that's something to think about as you guys work on your protocols or your applications. Anything else? Yeah.
I'll just speak really loudly. So in terms of investment focus, do you look more at taking Chinese and Asian teams and getting them out of the or the other way around?
So the question was about investment focus. If FBG looks more at Asian teams and helps globalize Asian teams, or if we look more at US or Western teams and brings them to Asia. The answer is both. So we have a portfolio of more than 70. Some of our teams are based out of Asia. So we've worked with Omise Go, with Zilliqa, and like with Zilliqa in particular, we've been very proactive about helping them structure their financing, as well as structure their token and connect them with sort of the relevant community ambassadors in the US. But we also work closely with some US projects, a few of which are here at ETHDenver this weekend, and work with them as they're building out their Asia communities. So a little bit of both. Any other questions?
Can you talk a little bit about your criteria and how it may have evolved, maybe in the most recent quarter or so as the landscape has changed?
Fundamentally, our criteria hasn't changed too much. We're looking for strong teams with strong communities. Our thesis around the space is that at the end of the day, while technology is really important, over the long term, in order for a project to succeed, the two key things are talent and community. So you can, like, teams can start out with, like a white paper that makes sense, but there's a big gap between having a white paper and actually building out a product that works, that people are willing to use. So we like to see strong tech, but we also want to see a strong team, as well as like a good plan for building out a global community. Any other questions? Yeah.
Hi, do you have any insights on like the quality of developers in the different Asian countries? Because I think like, the culture of even the different development communities varies a bit, and I think we don't have as much insight into that from the West. So any insights that you have that you think would be interesting to everyone here?
So I'm not a developer myself, and I might, like in my response, I might pass over maybe some of the nuances you're hoping to get. But I'd say globally, getting developer talent for the blockchain space has been a bottleneck for a lot of teams. And we think that this is an issue globally, but in Asia, there's so many people and so many people comfortable with technology, who use technology in their day-to-day lives, that in the near term, the the pool of developer talent in Asia, particularly in China, will grow a lot. And in the middle to longer term, we're expecting a lot more really talented blockchain developers and like blockchain teams to come out of Asia.
Hi, thanks. Specifically, do you know what sorts of industries you're looking to invest in that have a focus with blockchain?
Sure. So we don't focus explicitly on any particular industry at the moment, but a lot of our investments have been more on the infrastructure level.
Okay.
So at the blockchain level, maybe the layer just above the blockchain level. So far, not. We have worked with a limited number of projects that are industry specific.
Do you? I'm just playing off of like Y Combinator releases industries that they like to see companies start up in. Do you have something similar to that?
So areas that we've focused on at the infrastructure level include things like stable coins or interoperability platforms or scalability solutions. So those are the areas at the infrastructure level.
Right.
Some of the areas at the infrastructure level we're interested in, but in terms of like industries like retail or export import, we haven't gotten to that level yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, are there particular like areas that you're looking for right now, specifically, like that you think might have a good market, like outside of what you guys are actively investing in, like some, just like your insight from your perspective.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't say that we have a specific focus or a specific area of interest, but for me personally, I think platforms with elegant or interesting governance mechanisms and staking mechanisms, I like to look at.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, if that's it, thank you. I will be at ETHDenver until Sunday. Please follow us on Twitter at FBG Capital. If you have any questions, feel free to email. And I'm always happy to chat with teams about projects or just to discuss the space. So come find me and say hi. Okay, thank you.